All right. Good morning and welcome everybody to your Healthy Self podcast. This is your host of the day, Kate Archibald, and I'm really excited to dive into today's topic. We had an amazing Health Accelerator challenge last night. So if you're not a part of that community, make sure you are going to ACU East West. That's acueastwest.com/hack to get set up for that. And that is an amazing community. So last night, this last week's challenge was identifying as someone that really is a fulfilling whatever your specific goals are. How's my audio, Regan? Is it a little echoey still?
Just a little bit. I'm not sure what it is. It usually doesn't sound like that.
Darn it. Let me see real quick here. All right. Well, anyways, let's.
That's way better. Right there is good.
Perfect. So we have creating a healthy identity. So you are someone that is vibrant, healthy, energetic, all those different things. So I think last week's challenge really cool, and then this week's challenge. Let's see, Reagan, you're going to have to remind me. What's the challenge from last night?
Yeah, we talked about, brain health and is your brain smarter as you age? Do we get dumber? What are senior moments? What do those relate to? We talked about how tesamorelin, if you've got mild cognitive impairment, you want to get on top of that as soon as possible. And so we talked about using the peptide tesamorelin. There's some interesting studies on that. And then the challenge was, really focused around doing one thing at a time, and then looking at how much your memory has improved over the week when you just get present in doing one thing at a time.
Love it. All right. So you guys got your challenge for this week.
Yeah.
Great. And so today's show brought to you by the Smart Medicine. For any of your supplement needs, head over to thesmartmedicine.com and check that out. All right, well, let's dive in today, Reagan. Excited for today's show.
Man, today I've got snow and it's so exciting. So hopefully you guys are happy that we've got the snowfall again here in Utah. But today we're going to be talking about some of the ways you can really maximize your genetic health and maximize your brain health. And we're going to go through some testing that I believe is crucial, especially with the amount of chronic disease going on right now. So we're going to talk about some of the more advanced lab panels that you may want to consider. And then the other thing we're going to do is just go through some of the cool things you can do to stay in flow state. So, Kate, you remember the book, The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler?
Love that book.
Yeah, so I'll be introducing some of those concepts. He's got a new book called The Art of Impossible. And so we'll go through some of the concepts in that. And by the end of the show today, just imagine yourself having more confidence in the way that your brain performs, feeling better about your future as a person in their 80s, 90s, even 100s, without dementia, without Alzheimer's worries. And then imagine yourself being able to work within a state of mind and a state of being where you can perform at your absolute best. And that's what flow state really is all about, is about how can you maximize your ability to focus and focus on one thing confidently, and then learn new tasks and have challenges in your life. And so that's what we're going to cover today. I think it's the most important thing that we can be doing is making better use out of our time. But one of the things that we've learned is in our three-phase process, in anyone that I've ever helped over the years, is there's always interferences. And so if you look at the interferences in your life, what is getting in the way of you performing at your best? And so, Kate, what would you say some of those interferences are that you've seen in your own life, or maybe in patients' lives that you've worked with?
So things that interfere with health or get in the way of.
Interfere with, yeah, exactly, health, but just interfere with you being at your peak performance all the time and feeling your best, looking your best.
Yeah, so I think the food is probably the biggest challenge for most is just having some sort of a plan of how you're going to eat. I know when I eat something that I probably shouldn't, my performance and my brain and just my body doesn't work the way I'd like it to. That's probably one of the biggest ones. Also mindset. When I get filled with negativity, when I'm talking to someone that's make kind of bringing that vibration down, that definitely impacts things as well. So like mindset, foods and nutrition, and then movement. That would be like the third thing. So if I don't get up and get some good movement, get some exercise, my day is much different than the days that I get up, I move, I do some stretching, do some meditation, and bust out some kettlebells or whatever it is for the morning. If I at least get a couple minutes of movement in, way better.
It's crazy, isn't it? Just moving your body. I like what you said about changing the mindset, because if you read the book Atomic Habits, at the core of that, and you mentioned the challenge that we had, last week, which was, who are you identifying yourself as? And it's subtle, because so many of us identify ourselves as, I'm a stressed out human, or I'm overworked and underpaid, or I'm always going to have a chronic disease, or I am somebody with autoimmunity, or I'm somebody who has compromised joints and I can't ever get out of pain. And so we just challenged everybody to, number one, identify yourself with somebody else as somebody you want to become. And then what James Clear found is most people fail on creating new habits because they are disciplined to the current set of habits that they're already existing in, which is based around an identity of maybe the person you don't want to be anymore. And so that, just checking in and clearing that out of your psyche can be one of the most important things you can do. So the other interference, food, you mentioned nutrition, movement, those are some really critical things. And so today we may take a deep dive on interferences, but I want to hear from you guys. What are some of your interferences? What are some of the things that get in the way of you healing and you making the progress that you're looking to make in your health journey? And if you have not read my new book, Never Stop Healing, you do want to get a copy of that. It's we've gotten amazing feedback. I'd love to get a review on Amazon. Ann and I would really appreciate that. So Never Stop Healing. I'll share my screen so you guys can see this book. But yeah, Never Stop Healing: The Unknown Shortcuts with Peptides for an Extraordinary Life. If you go back to our previous shows, we actually did 4 shows on this entire book, and so you could even go listen to that. I couldn't believe it was 4 hours just to explain the concepts in the book. So it's a thick book. It makes a great gift. We've got a holiday special going on through the end of the year, where you can get a gift bag that we have some cool samples in there, some great surprises, a copy of my book, access to our Health Accelerator Challenge, and then even an acupuncture treatment or chiropractic adjustment, depending on what clinic you go to. And that's just $30. And so go ahead and snag that if you haven't already, because we talk about interferences to healing, and one of the reasons I titled the book Never Stop Healing is because it's just like static. If you have a light switch that turns on and turns off, turns on, turns off, and then suddenly you get a short in that light switch because there's interference. Maybe you have a rat chewing on your wire. Let's hope not, but maybe, or maybe that wire shakes loose, or there's something that trips in your breaker. It's really important to dig in and find that underlying cause, because what Western medicine wants us to say is, well, we're just going to use medication and we're going to tape up the light switch. And then you don't have to think about it anymore. And even though your lights don't work, it's just out of sight, out of mind, because the switch is taped up. And so what our job is here, if we never stop healing, our job is to actually get in there. And even if we have to tear apart the sheetrock and figure out what the problem is, that's how you remove real interference. And if you don't remove real interference, what we find is people end up with more pain. They end up with more chronic disease. And then 5-6 years down the road, they're devastated because they never fully committed to getting rid of that interference. And so the very first place we start when it comes to removing interference is getting the correct tests ordered. And so, Kate, I've been doing some advanced training in the functional medicine world, and really digging in with some of the world's leading researchers and scientists, trying to figure out how we can better help understand what interferences are going on in our patients' lives. And so as we jump into flow state, the very first thing that we're going to talk about is some of the critical tests and labs that can really help people uncover the underlying causes. So should we jump in?
Yeah.
I see some comments coming in, so I'll let you share those.
Oh yeah, just some of the challenges. Interference is one. It's easy to make that excuse to avoid my morning yoga. Oh, it's so easy. Like last night, my 2-year-old it's like it's a nightly thing. I got to figure out something, but she wanders into the bedroom at 1 to 2 a.m., crawls in bed, and she's just like a great missile launcher. Like she just digs her head right into my ribs. And so every morning it's like, oh, I should just sleep a little longer. I worked out yesterday. I don't need to work out today. And it's just this like easy thing. So easy to fall into that and create excuses. I didn't sleep well, or, I got to bed late last night. And so I needed it's just funny. All the excuses and reasons not to do stuff that's productive for ourselves. It's crazy how the mind is self-sabotaging sometimes.
It's wild. Well, Kate, from everything that I know of resetting that circadian rhythm, like if you have a poor night's sleep, you got to go jump in your freezer. Your Kate's got a meat freezer that he soaks his body in. So
Yeah,
that's your best route.
yes, I made the same mistake as last year. I left it on, and when the temperatures dropped, just turned into a block of ice, and it's been gradually melting down. So getting ready to jump into that. Cold showers just aren't the same in St. George, still, even with the winter.
No, it's not the same. When I try to take a cold shower down there, I'm like, this is like my hot. Like it's yeah. But Midway, we've got some cold water these days. It's nice.
Oh yeah.
And I think one thing we need to give a shout out to our community. I mean, how about the amount of transformations we've seen this year? I mean, if we go back to the end of 2020, and why don't you all just kind of put yourselves there? Because there's a lot of people who just started working with us this year who are on the webinar today. There's a lot of people who will be listening to this and who are, have made a complete health transformation. And we have people on this who have lost 50 pounds this year, just in 2021. We have people who have lowered their hemoglobin A1C. Even, Bev, you and I did the 100-day challenge. We put on some muscle mass. So some of us have put on muscle mass. We have people who are walking farther, people who have energy levels that they've never had before. And then we also have some of our members that we love. And, there's been some setbacks, and it's been a really challenging year. And so I just want to give you guys some props and let you guys know how much you mean to us in this community, and just how incredible it is to watch you go through your own transformation. So that is super inspiring. That removes interferences from me, because I know I'm making an impact in the world when I see the changes taking place. So shout out to all of you in the community. Well done.
Yeah, amazing work.
All right, so let's talk about, some ways you can go and take a deep dive into removing bigger interferences. And so I'm going to share with you guys just some of our new kind of deep dive that we're going to be taking into the world of, understanding what is getting in the way of your healing. Because if you think about our bodies, we have this DNA structure, and the DNA get expressed when your body has the right nutrients, when there's the right environment. You can express health. And that's the overall goal, is to keep your cells as healthy as possible. When we have inflammation that comes in, or infections, or we have emotional stress, or we have physical trauma, those processes start to cause a lessening in that signaling fact in the cells. And so we talked about peptides. We talk about those quite often, because all peptides do is they go in there and they change that genetic response so that your cells can communicate in an effective way. But in order for us to maximize the efficiency of everything we're doing from a nutritional perspective or a supplement perspective, we've got to get the correct underlying tests going. And so one of those tests that many of you have done is the functional blood chemistry, and that's been kind of a foundational test. It still will be. The other one is the gut test. And how many of you have gotten the scoop on your poop? You've actually seen what's inside of your colon from a bacterial perspective and a fungi perspective. So that's a foundational test, because that's where we can show how well you're absorbing nutrients. We can see if there's any imbalance in gut flora. We can see if you've got leaky gut. And last night we talked about the fact that the gut is highly connected to the brain. You can see if there's any metabolic imbalances, if you're producing the right enzymes from your pancreas. And then you can also look at overall inflammation and autoimmunity straight from the gut test. And then the third test in the foundational lab package is the saliva test, so the adrenal test. And that shows you how well your circadian rhythms are. So you can see, are you waking up and you have healthy cortisol secretions? Is your melatonin being secreted at the right time, so that when you're awake, you're alert, active, you feel great, but when you're asleep, you're feeling rested and you wake up feeling rejuvenated and energetic? That's the goal. And so that's one of the reasons we do this salivary adrenal test. And then the other test that I've ran on myself a few times, and it's a test it's a urine sample, but it's also a blood test. It's called the Nutra-Eval, and it's one of the most advanced tests that Genova Labs actually runs. And the Nutra-Eval, the interesting thing about it is this is where you can start seeing what biotoxins you've got in your body. You can see the exact profile of amino acids. You can also see if you've got any heavy metals, what toxic burden you've got in your body. And so this is a really powerful test that I certainly would recommend, as you guys are moving into a new year. One of the best ways to start the new year is by getting the correct tests ordered. So Kate, have you done the Nutra-Eval? I think you may have down in St. George, or not yet.
We've used it a few times, and really intriguing, really great, amazing data. I haven't done it on myself. I need to do it for myself as well. But we've done it on quite a few patients, and see some really good insights.
Yeah, so here's gives you just kind of an up close and personal, but as I've been working with the lab, saying, okay, what's the most impactful test that you guys are doing over at Genova Labs, because they're arguably the most advanced diagnostic laboratory in the world. And so one of the things that they said is, well, the Nutra-Eval gives you so much deeper knowledge, and this is where you can start working on those nuanced pathways. And so you can see here the oxidative stress. How many of you would, maybe the oxidative stress is starting to give you some concern about cardiovascular disease. So this oxidative stress, that's where we look at cysteine levels, lipid peroxidases. the 8-OHDG, the glutathione, the taurine, the citric acid, and the cis-acetonic acid profiles, all showing how much inflammation it is. But that's a sensitive inflammatory marker, very sensitive. Homocysteine and C-reactive protein are commonly tested in our blood panels, but this goes one step further. And then you can look at mitochondrial support. So this is fascinating because the mitochondria, that's the powerhouse of your cell, and the mitochondrial health actually can be influenced by the genetics, but they can also be influenced by the nutritional profile you've got. So then we see the omega support. So how many, what's your omega-3 index look like, your omega-6 to 3 ratios, your linoleic acid, your arachidonic acid. These are all really powerful markers for inflammation, for going upstream and removing inflammation by putting the right fatty acids in. And then we look at your toxic exposure. These are heavy metals. That's what I mentioned earlier. And then your methylation issues. So if you have the MTHFR, COMT, like I've got the different variants there, then this becomes a really critical avenue to look at to see how well you're supporting your DNA. Because if you don't have proper methylation, then what happens in your cells is as your cells start using energy and we have metabolic waste, just like you have exhaust from your car, the methylation is what allows you to remove that waste and get it out of the way between the cells so your cells can actually start to thrive again. So this is a test that covers all that. It's the Nutra-Eval. And so that's in our foundational package. So you'll be seeing us, recommending this a lot more next year because of the ability we have to take a deep dive and really discover what's going on. So any questions on this one, Cade? You can see kind of the excitement, antioxidants. We can look at all your B vitamins, your minerals, essential fatty acids, even how well you're doing on enzymes and microbiome, your probiotic support. And then all of these things are all structured out. So it's a pretty cool test, Don. Does that get you excited?
Yeah, it gives us better insights on how we can maximize someone's nutrition, really dialing it in. I know our blood work's super comprehensive, but it's not as dissective. It's not getting down into all those minerals and different vitamin and methylation pathways. So this is super interesting and great information to have to help people lifestyle wise, as well as just understanding what underlying causes there are.
Yeah, and then if you look at the some of the other tests that we're running, you look at the comprehension, and this is where we include the foundational package, but we also go and we do a SIBO test, so that's small intestine bacterial overgrowth. We also look at mold toxicity and allergens, so environmental allergens. Because remember, the whole goal in 2022 is let's remove interferences so you can move without pain, so you don't have issues with sleep, so you can produce the right hormones. And so removing some of those environmental toxins is a big deal. And then we also do the food antibodies. And I know Judy mentioned earlier that foods can be something that creates interferences. And so we're going to see what foods your body actually has any kind of issues with. And usually once we get the stool test, we take you through that, we get things cleaned out, then we see the food sensitivities drop substantially. And then the final one we do is a more advanced chemical. So it looks at all the biotoxins in the body. And that profile is critical because it shows what is aggravating your immune system and what those environmental toxins can be doing to your liver. So it's very critical. And then the final more advanced lab package includes the foundational, the comprehensive labs, the cardiovascular and stroke is the one we add on there, and that goes into some of the genetic factors. Are you predisposed to having cardiovascular disease? And then we look at those small lipoproteins And those small lipoproteins, those can be the big difference, because that's what can really trigger some of the endothelial breakdowns, which triggers that heart inflammation. And especially these days with the COVID-19 vaccine from both Johnson and Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer, we're seeing the myocarditis levels come up pretty substantially. And so we decided that having a more detailed cardiovascular checkup would be really critical for so many of our patients who have had cardiovascular complications, or they are at risk for cardiovascular disease. Because Kate, we've seen it in our own family with our dad, that a stroke or a cardiovascular event can happen within just a few minutes. You can go from leaving the doctor's office and having a clean bill of health and everything looks perfect in your labs, to a heart attack. And we see it all the time, but with the cardio check, this more advanced profile that we do, we can go upstream and remove those interferences before a heart attack shows up. Because one of the other interesting things is just from a financial perspective alone. Kate, do you know what it costs people when they have cardiovascular disease, what the additional out-of-pocket expense is in a lifetime?
I know it's extremely high, but I don't know the exacts. No.
Yeah, I was reading an interesting article where I just, looked at the expense of healthcare, especially for, as we get into our later years. And osteoarthritis, from the Osteoarthritis Foundation, they found that people on average with osteoarthritis will spend $11,000 per year. People with diabetes, it's $330,000 is the average. I mean, there's going to be extremes. Heart disease is about the same as diabetes, about $300,000 to $350,000 more in a lifetime. And usually that comes in that last 10 years of life. And so, our goal is aligning lifespan with health span. And so I tell people often, I said, you may not want to work with me unless you're willing to make some big changes, because we're not just interested in having you come into the clinic and work with us. And we appreciate you doing that, but we're really intent on making massive changes that are going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money in the future. But most importantly, we want to put health back into your years. And so, a lot of doctors don't think about putting health back into people's years. They just think, okay, let's make sure that if there is a disease, that we're treating it with some kind of medication or surgery.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful thing about these labs, is it gives you, there's action that can be taken from these labs, whereas most your typical labs that Western medicine is going to see as medically necessary, as well as just the standard of care, is not going to give you actionable things. It's just going to say if you have a disease pattern or not, and then there's a medication that's going to follow. And so I think that's the beautiful thing about these labs, as well as just practicing more holistic transformational healthcare, and really having the mindset that Regan has here, where it's like, hey, we want to actually create long-term solutions and real transformations for someone's health long-term, and putting that health back into those years. Because Western medicine, like you look at the data, and life expectancy, it's kind of capped out, but you go back 50 years, life expectancy is significantly better. But the true question and the true concern I have is like, what's the quality of life of those years? Like, is it just medications and different surgical procedures and different things that are prolonging life, but not really increasing the value of that?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, because the whole goal is of this show today is just looking at life a little differently. How are we identifying ourselves? And so once you've got the identity, a lot of people say, all right, now that I'm just resonating with this, I've got my vision board, and it's the law of attraction is fine, but the law of action is much better. And as Teddy Roosevelt said, he said, the best decision you can make is the right decision. The second best decision you can make is the wrong decision. The worst decision you can make is no decision. And so right now we've all got a decision to make every day. What are we going to do to maximize and optimize our health? And how can we start removing these interferences that keep us from feeling our best, looking our best, and living our very best years, no matter what age you might be? And so the final test that we have on this is the telomere testing. And this is fascinating because we've literally had people test their telomeres, and they may test 10 years or sometimes 15 years older than they are chronologically. So they're 15 years older biologically. And then we do work with them, and we take them through our 6-month comprehensive program. And we look at their telomeres after, and they are 10 years younger from a biological perspective than they are chronologically. So telomeres are really fascinating. So that's something that we will be doing more of. We did that a lot in 2017, 2018, 2019. And then with COVID, we just wanted to focus on, hey, let's make sure we get the foundational pieces in. But now in 2022, it's time that we start moving towards optimization and really focused on how we can feel our best and actually, like you said, Kate, put some health back into the years. So these are our new lab packages. So if you think about this and you say, okay, well, what can this do for the way I feel, the way I look, and how does this actually create some clarity? Well, like I said about Teddy Roosevelt, making a decision, the best decision is to move your health in the right direction, because we have more information now than we've ever had. And it's not more information that we need, but it's the right course of action. And so what we've learned is if we just needed more information, then no one would be overweight. We'd all eat great foods. We'd all have no issues with aging. We wouldn't have any pain in our joints, because I guarantee you can do a Google search right now and find the latest cure to osteoarthritis, or here's 9 ways that you can get rid of back pain for good, or read my guide on removing autoimmunity, right, Kate? It's all over the internet. And there's really good advice.
Vast amounts of information.
It's like I'm drinking from a fire hydrant. I mean, our parents had newspapers.
Yeah.
Now we have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have TikTok, and we got Fox News and CNN and all the other crazy stuff thrown at us. And so, but when it comes to your health, I don't know what the best course is until we get some real labs, until we get the real data. And now that we've done more advanced training, now that I've dug in and I've been spending my weekends, just diving into these new labs and getting caught up with the technology, there's some exciting things that you have a chance to take advantage of in the new year. So all you need to do is let us know if you are someone who would like to take a deeper dive, and maybe a couple of those tests interest you. And so we're happy to get those ran and really start to take even a bigger look. So looks like we had a couple of comments come in.
Yeah. So Diane said, don't forget to set time aside to make Never Stop Healing book an Audible. And then I'll be doing my blood work with you in January. Nice.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, I can't wait for that. But and yes, I appreciate the reminder to get that set up. The problem is just creating the studio, and then it's going to take me about 8 to 10 hours, I figured, to do it. And with Audible, they want you to do it in like one, it's got to be all synchronized, and ideally one cut, and you have it all in one file. So I'll get that done. Kate, can you help me schedule that?
We'll get that booked in your schedule for sure.
Nice. Well, this is awesome. So let's talk about, now that we've removed interferences. So at the beginning of the show, we said, all right, imagine that you are able to live without pain, you have great digestion, your liver's functioning properly, you know what foods to eat, you have the confidence that you need to bring yourself to a higher level of brain performance, and you have greater connection in your relationships. You go through the holidays and you just have fun. You lose the stress because of your health. And so as you're doing that, we talked about labs that can help remove some of those interferences. But now we're going to talk about your mindset around this. And we're going to go into flow state. And this is one of, in my opinion, it's one of the most fascinating things that you can study is flow state. And so we had a Go Wellness event. And Kate, Dan talked about flow state. And were you able to hear much of that?
I got a little bit of it, but definitely not the whole thing. I was working with some clients at the same time.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So flow state. Let me. I'll just share this with everybody so you can see it, and then I have my captions on there too. So if you read the book The Rise of Superman, it's really fascinating because he studied extreme athletes and he said, what is it that keeps us as a human race? We are constantly pushing the envelope. You have people doing like the Red Bull Rampage in Virgin, Utah, doing like backflips on mountain bikes and going down like a straight cliff and gapping 100 feet. And I mean, it's just, they're doing things that 20 years ago we would have said is absolutely impossible. Flipping a motorcycle, doing a backflip on the motorcycle. When I was into racing, in the 90s, that was not even thought of. Now they're doing backflips with barrel rolls, and I think there's triple backflips. I've seen them do backflips with two people on a motorcycle.
Yeah, you can. You can get like there's crazy iterations from a backflip on a motorcycle now, and you watch some of that extreme motocross, and they're doing backflip like Supermans, and like there's the acceleration of that in the, like, even I remember when I saw the first, it was Carey Hart did the first backflip on like the X Games, and that was in 2001 or two, some early 2000s, and I was like, this is insane, that is incredible. And yeah, it's just progressed since then, like just amazing how that how like, especially in the extreme athlete world, it's like, okay, we did this one thing, and now like that opens up a whole new channel of acceleration. And I think the flow state ties right into it. It's like in the book, what is it? The Rise of Superman. Is that what the exact title is? But the stories that he would tell about these athletes, there was like rock climbers that would have these like out of body experiences when they just about fall, or or even they did fall. And then I think Laird Hamilton was the surfer that he followed on like the big wave surfs, like, because those you see some of that, those huge waves, like that is insane. You fall, like you get pummeled, and you more than likely die if from one of those waves. And so like you got to be on your game when you're dropping one of those.
Big time. Yeah, so it's so fascinating. But as he started tapping into the brain waves, and Kate and I went to the Bulletproof conference, and we got to spend some time on their toys, and they had a whole section set up of these movement series that would put you in flow state. So they had like swings and stuff, and it was really cool. But they looked at the brain, and so this is really important, because as you remove interferences from your physiology, then you can access your psychology so much. And so many of us, when it comes to mindset, yes, you got to start identifying yourself as somebody who is focused on their health. And every day you're moving into new iterations of health. And so just like extreme athletes have been able to increase what they can do, in medicine, I mean, just in the last year, we've been able to elevate what we're doing in our programs. And so I'm really excited about this, because one of the things we'll be introducing is how we get into flow state. And this will be part of every single program. So if you look at it, our brain waves, we have delta brain waves. And if you guys remember our isochronic beats, or binaural beats, you want to listen to those every day, because you have different beats that can get you into this delta brainwave. And that's our recovery state. And that's when we release serotonin and oxytocin. The struggle is the beta brainwaves. And this is where we spend most of our time as modern humans, is we're in this cortisol and norepinephrine, this stress cycle. And so the beta brainwaves are what really block you from being into flow state. Of course, we have to recover, and that's when we're sleeping. But then if we wake up and our cortisol spiked, and then we throw some caffeine on it, and we don't work out, and we go and we're in rush hour traffic, that becomes a state where our brains start getting fried and we lose focus, which is the challenge for the week, is to stay focused on one thing at a time. And then once you have that release, you go into alpha state. And that's when you're out of that struggle mode and you feel like you can just take action and get things done. And that's when you can really focus. And that's when you get nitric oxide that releases. And there is a little bit of oxytocin in this state as well. And that's when you get better dilation from your blood vessels, and your limbs start getting more active and you feel great. And then the flow state hits, and the flow is when you go into those theta and gamma brainwaves. And that's when you get the dopamine and the endorphins and the anandamide. And so this is a powerful anandamide. It comes from a Buddhist term that means like one with the universe or one with God. And that's that state where, Kate talked about the rock climber having an out-of-body experience as he's, climbing these like paths that like no human should be able to hang on to. And in some of these stories, they had to do it without harnesses, which is they're free climbing these ridiculous heights. And so they were in deep flow state. And so let's talk about how to get there, because if you could put yourself at a time of life right now, when you feel like you perform at your best, where you're excited, you feel a good sense of challenge, but not too much, not too little, so there's no boredom there. What are those activities that you're doing that leads to that flow state? And one of the things that is necessary for flow state is movement. And so in our movement accelerator series, we've got everything you need to do to move your body so that you can access these flow states. And we've trained on this with some of the Qigong movements and getting into exercise routines that allow you to access that. But what are some of the things you like to do that keep you in flow state? Maybe you could plug it in the chat box here.
Downhill mountain biking.
That's Cade's downhill mountain biking. Snowboarding is a big one for you. What else?
Yeah, wakeboarding. That's another one that I really enjoy. That one is like, you got to be conditioned to really wakeboard though.
Wakeboarding is awesome. Well, even your wake surfing, I can tell you're in flow state when you start going on that.
Yeah, wake surfing's really fun. I would say it's flow state, but definitely not as much like adrenaline related there.
Yeah.
It's a little more, much more chill, which is probably smart for me. Diane said lifting weights.
Oh, nice.
Love that. Feel great and powerful.
Yeah. And so Diane, keep doing that, because as you're lifting weights, as you push yourself, like this morning, I was doing the Turkish get-ups.
Yeah.
And those are challenging movements. And then I did pistol squats. So it's like one-legged squats. And I literally had to access a flow state in order to do the pistol squats, because I feel like my leg's not strong enough. But then when you stand up and you're like, oh, my leg can do it. It can support me. Even though I've done them for years, it does. So I think you brought up a good point, Diane. That's awesome. So here's what happens when we're stressed. So you can go burnout or you can go boredom. And this can influence the quality of your performance, because if you're going superhuman mode, which I'm going to encourage everybody in 2022 to just, it's a year that we've got to level up. 2020 and 2021 have just been chaotic years. And so the only thing we can control is our response to some of the chaos. And I believe focusing on your health is the best way through all of the chaos in life. And so focusing on these flow states, where you're not bored, if Diane's in the gym and she's not trying anything new, she's probably not going to access that flow state. So this is why changing up exercise routines frequently is really important. And then if you're pushing yourself too hard, and let's say you're doing a workout that you just can't keep up with, you're going to burn out. Or if you're doing an activity that is just super stressful. Kate, I remember when we went heli skiing. It was like flow state for a minute and then burnout, flow state, burnout for me, because we didn't have the right snowboards. And so my back leg was just on fire. And because we were not riding powder boards.
Yeah. I remember that, my right leg was just like so sore the next day too. But it was so fun, especially when you get like in that much powder. You got to have a good slope. Otherwise, it's just like painful.
Whew. Yeah. But man, that was like flow state, because, you're in an environment where there's high risk, but there's also high reward. So, we had guides and we had the whole, avalanche training and things like that. But man, that's what can put you into flow state. So some of these activities that are really exciting. So do any of you have any kind of bucket list activities, things that you want to do in 2022 that's going to keep you in flow state more? And this is once again, this is where getting people out of pain is so critical. And so one of the things we did middle of 2021 is we teamed up with a group of amazing pain interventionists. We started doing these manipulation under anesthesia, where we just break up the scar tissue or the connective tissue in the joints. We get people moving like they've never moved before. We're doing some more advanced nerve reset treatments. And it's just been incredible to see the outcomes of our patients to get out of pain. And then once you're out of pain, you can move your body. And then once you're moving your body, you can access this flow state much better. And so there's a whole series. And then once you're in flow state, then you say, I want to stay in this mode. Well, in order to stay in it, you've got to remove the interferences. So how do you remove interferences? Well, you've got to open the gut pathways. You've got to focus on optimizing hormones. You've got to remove the biotoxins. And then you also have to remove infections. And then you've got to really start maximizing all the nutrients so that your brain has something to feed on. And that's it. That's how you optimize human performance. And that's how you stay on top of your game. So here's another kind of interesting thing with flow state is, if the challenge becomes too great, you get anxiety. Like when we go into flat, this was in Revelstoke up in British Columbia, and the snow got heavy. The farther down the mountain you'd go, the snowpack would just get heavier and heavier and heavier. And then if you hit a flat spot, the anxiety would come up because the challenge was too great, and then we'd get out of flow. I don't ever remember being bored on that trip at all.
No, no amazing. Boredom.
No boredom at all. But that's the thing, is if you're doing something that's not really exciting to you, then you can drop into this state of boredom. And that's going to be something that gets in the way of the flow state. So flow state's pretty darn interesting. And Kate, do you have anything new that you want to come in or comment on?
No, I think one of my goals for 2022 would be to actually wakeboard more. It's a little harder setup, and it takes a little bit more time getting the wake just right, and getting the right driver is always a challenge. But that's one thing, because last year I think I only rode, like I would surf all the time, but Actually, wakeboarding was, I don't know, like maybe 3 different times. So not a ton. And it's like amazing workout wise, but it's like so exhilarating. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. And then I need to get probably more mountain biking as well. Specifically downhill. Uphill, it's tough for me to access flow state going up. I think that's more, I get more in the anxiety or in the boredom if I'm not going fast enough.
And I'm the opposite. I actually really dig that. Well,
I bounce between boredom and anxiety too quickly. I can't find that happy medium. Maybe that's my challenge this year, is figure out how to access flow with uphill mountain biking. That would be a really good challenge, because I know I could get into flow at all those other things. It's just I want to do them more.
yeah.
There we go. That's my challenge.
That's Cade's challenge. Good. What will your challenge be? And I looked in the chat box, and Diane, that's such good news. So Diane came and got our eye rejuvenation treatment. And she said, people have noticed I'm not squinting anymore like I used to. And the color is coming back to my pupils. Yay.
So cool.
That's awesome, Diane. I'm so glad to hear that. Wow. That is great. So hopefully your vision, I just hope it just keeps returning and gets better and better, and you have more color return and more functionality there, because vision is so critical. Okay, so just to finish up, one of the things that happens is your gut, the microbiota in your gut influences your flow state. And so if you don't have the right mix of bacteria, then you could be mitigating your ability to access flow state. And you could be accessing beta waves, which is cortisol and norepinephrine, those stress responses, more frequently. So one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about labs before this is so we can remove all the biotoxins, the infections, start working on maximizing a genetic response that's going to be much better than you've ever had. We've got to repair the leaky gut. And then we got to get the vagus nerve activated. That's where the cold exposure and the Wim Hof breathing, those are such critical things. But there's so many things we can do to access this state of high performance that I know you all love. But it starts with getting your physiology in the right frame of reference, and get rid of those interferences, and then having the mindset that you say, hey, I am identifying myself as somebody who is going to be healthier tomorrow than I was today. I'm going to serve people in a greater capacity. I'm going to be able to show up with my best foot forward in everything that I do. I'm going to have intentionality around my life, and I'm going to live as healthy as I possibly can, no matter what my diagnosis is, or no matter what barriers that may come before me, because the barriers just become obstacles that we can get greater tools and greater capabilities and overcome. So that's it for today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you are looking to optimize your health in 2022, reach out to us. Many of you are in our programs. We can't thank you enough. If you want to get a little more advanced in the testing, we're happy to go through that with you. These are some fascinating new things we'll be bringing in.
Love it. Well, we will be back same time, same place next week. We'll be live next week, and then we'll take a couple weeks off for the holidays. So we'll still have some content published, but just mark that in your calendars. But we'll be back same time, same place next week. Thanks so much, Regan. Amazing content as usual. See everybody. Have an amazing Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.